Don't wait up. Clients booked back-to-back tonight. That's what she said, leaning over to kiss me goodbye like she had 1,000 times before. She wore her usual work blouse, casual lipstick, tossed her hair into a loose bun. The whole performance. And like always, I nodded and said, "Of course, sweetheart. Be safe." But this time I didn't believe her. "My name's Daniel.
I'm 62.
I own commercial properties across Central Texas, office parks, retail strips, a few restaurants. If you've paid rent in this county, chances are I've seen your lease. I built this portfolio from the ground up. Started with a single duplex I refinished myself. Now I manage over 40 tenants and lease to more than 70 businesses. My wife, Melissa, she's 39, beautiful, smart, magnetic, the kind of woman who could flip a room with a glance. I met her 7 years ago at a charity gala. She was a volunteer. I was a board member. 6 months later, we were married. She said she always dreamed of owning her own salon. I made it happen, leased her a full suite in one of my buildings, paid for the remodel, gave her the branding agency and the startup cash. I even helped hire her younger sister to run the front desk. "It's your space," I told her. "You build the dream. I'll handle the walls." And for a while, it worked. But lately, something changed. 3 months ago, the late nights started. Once a week, then twice. Now, almost every Thursday and Friday, she claimed she was working overtime. Loyal clients who couldn't come in during the day, she said. I didn't question her at first. Why would I? She had her space, her staff, her success. But then last week, my building manager called. "Hey Daniel, just a heads up. The lights at Suite 3B have been off the last few nights. Not sure if they're skipping work or what. You want me to check it out?" 3B.
Melissa's salon.
"No," I said. "Don't worry about it. I'll take a look myself." I hung up. Didn't say a word to her that night. She came home glowing. Said it was non-stop all day. That she barely had time to breathe. She poured a glass of wine, kicked off her shoes, and said she was proud of herself. I said I was proud too. But something inside me had shifted. That small voice. The one that whispers when something doesn't line up. And I've learned, after 6 decades in business, love, and life, that when that voice speaks, you listen. The next night, I waited until it got dark. Drove by the salon around 8:30 p.m. Didn't get out of the truck. Her car was there. The lights were not. The sign on the door was off.
No clients.
No movement. Just her car sitting in the lot like a prop in a bad movie. So I pulled up my phone. Opened the remote security feed I'd installed years ago, as a landlord, not as a husband. Clicked the hallway cam. At 7:43 p.m., she walked in. 15 minutes later, so did he. Tall, mid-30s, athletic build. Hands in his pockets like he belonged there. He didn't. I watched them disappear into the salon.
No bags.
No equipment.
No explanation.
They stayed inside for 2 hours. No one else entered. No one else left. I didn't yell. Didn't call. Didn't even breathe heavy. I just stared at that tiny screen, watching the wife I built a business for, using my building like it was hers, like she was untouchable. She forgot one thing. I don't rent space. I own it. And I don't fight in the open. I tear things down quietly, brick by brick. The next morning, she was humming, standing barefoot in the kitchen, flipping pancakes like she hadn't just spent 2 hours locked inside her salon suite with another man. She kissed my cheek, handed me coffee, and asked what I had planned for the day. "Meetings," I said. "Might be home late." She smiled. "So will I, right?" I drove straight to my office and pulled up the tenant log system. Every electronic keycard registers movement. Hers was tagged to Suite 3B. I ran a 60-day report. Melissa had entered her salon late, past 7 p.m., over 17 times in the last month and a half. 12 of those nights, her keycard had been used again less than 15 minutes later. By a guest key. I'd never issued a guest key. By noon, I called in 2 people I trust. Tom, my building manager, he's been with me 19 years. Kayla, the front desk receptionist for that complex, and someone who quietly hears everything. Tom walked in first. You want me to check the cameras again? Already did. Want to shut off her suite? Not yet. I needed more. I needed the why. Kayla came in 20 minutes later. Closed the door behind her like she knew this wasn't small talk. You want the truth or the clean version? Truth, I said. Always. She leaned in. There's a guy who comes in every Thursday. Young. BMW. Melissa always says it's a client, but he's never on the books. She locks the salon when he gets there. Name? Darren. I think his name's Darren Kyle. She slipped once and said he was helping with some branding stuff. But he's not part of the company. I nodded slowly, then pulled up the tenant application database for my other building downtown. There it was. 3 days ago, Darren K. requested lease approval for Suite 214, a small storefront. Under business name, he wrote, Studio Melissa, Phase 2. My throat went dry. She wasn't just cheating. She was expanding. Building a second location with this man in one of my own buildings. And guess who was listed as a co-signer on the lease? Not Melissa, my wife's younger sister. That's when it clicked. They weren't just sneaking around behind my back. They were plotting, using my buildings, my brand, my silence. I didn't scream. I didn't call her. I just opened my security feed again. Watched her walk into 3B at 7:21 p.m. that night. Watched Darren follow at 7:35. Same pattern. Same lie. She even wore the same jacket she did on our 3rd anniversary dinner. The next morning, I made 2 quiet phone calls. First, to my lawyer. I want full asset protection protocols enacted. Starting today. Everything tied to the business, freeze it. He didn't even ask why. Second, to my IT team. I want all access revoked from the salon POS system. Passwords changed. Logs copied. Everything copied. Do you want us to notify her?
No.
Let her find out the hard way. That night, she came home later than usual. Smiled as she poured herself wine. Sorry, another crazy night. I nodded. You ever think about expanding? I asked casually. She froze just long enough to confirm everything I needed to know. I mean, maybe someday. Downtown would be a great market, I added, sipping bourbon. She nodded too quickly. You always think ahead, she said, and kissed my cheek. I smiled back. She had no idea I already saw the lease. No idea I'd already frozen the funds. And no clue that the very floors she stood on were already being pulled out from beneath her. Because she forgot one thing. When you betray a landlord, he doesn't knock. He just changes the locks. The next morning, I walked into my office early, 6:15 a.m. I didn't pour coffee. I didn't check emails. I walked straight into the server room, pulled the master switchboard login, and disabled power access to Suite 3B. Just one flip. Then I called building maintenance. Suite 3B is under internal audit. Flag it. Suspend services. Run a compliance check. I want full documentation by end of day. By 7 a.m., her salon was legally in violation of 3 tenant regulations. Unauthorized access after hours. Unregistered business affiliate activity. Suspicion of fraudulent use of funds. I didn't need to evict her. I just needed her to feel it. By noon, the texts started coming in. Babe, something's wrong with the salon. No lights, no water heater. My tablet isn't working. Do you know anything? Then 5 minutes later, building manager says it's under review? Since when? Can you call someone? I didn't respond. She came home early. Stormed in, breathing fast like someone caught in a lie. Everything shut down. Clients had to leave. I had no warning. I looked up from the newspaper. Weird, I said. Maybe there's been a mistake. Call the landlord. She blinked, paused. That split-second fear that flickered across her face? That was confirmation. You're the landlord. I smiled, slowly. Exactly. She sat down, trying to pivot. Okay, look, I may have made some decisions about the business that I should have run by you. I folded the paper. Like what? I was considering expanding. You always said I should think like an owner. Did I also say to register your new location under my name? Silence. Or funnel payments to someone named Darren. Or list your sister as a co-owner on a business I built and financed. She looked like she'd just swallowed glass. It's not what you think, she whispered. It never is. That night, I called my lawyer again. Time to go deeper. We initiated a forensic financial audit of every account linked to the salon, cross-referenced with Melissa's personal cards, her sister's transactions, and Darren's consulting payouts. We froze all outgoing transfers. Then we filed a legal hold on Suite 214, Darren's new lease attempt. Rejected. Blocked. He'd get a notice in the mail by Monday. Application denied due to conflict of interest and fraudulent partner disclosure. But we weren't done. I called my IT team again. Scrape everything. Emails, texts, invoices. I want a file on this guy by end of week. Melissa tried to go back to work the next morning. Found the door locked. Lights still off. No access to her booking system. Building manager handed her an envelope. Compliance violation. Temporary closure until further notice. She called me. I let it ring. She texted, "This is my livelihood." I didn't reply, because I wasn't destroying her business. I was just showing her who owned it. That night, she walked into the house quieter than usual. Didn't say much. Didn't make dinner. She sat across from me at the table and finally said, "What do you want from me?" I looked her in the eye. "I want you to realize that loyalty is a lease, and yours expired." She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her eyes said it all. For the first time, she understood. She never owned a damn thing. She was just living in it. Melissa stayed home the next day. She didn't mention the salon. She didn't mention Darren. She just floated around the house in silence, trying to act like things might still return to normal. But I had already moved past the point of conversation. This wasn't about closure. It was about consequences. That morning, I met with Ben, my attorney of 15 years. We sat down in his office, door shut, blinds down. I laid it all out. Copies of her falsified invoices. Financial transfers to Darren's shell company. Lease application under false ownership. POS activity with Ghost. Consulting fees. Surveillance stills. Guest keycard logs. All lined up in a neat 3-inch binder. Ben flipped through it like he was reading a murder scene. "She cooked herself," he muttered. "Want to bury her or just bankrupt her?" "Both," I said. He nodded. We began filing. White heavy checkmark petition to dissolve the business, citing financial misconduct. White heavy checkmark fraud investigation request with my bank's compliance department. White heavy checkmark pre-divorce asset lockdown, freezing everything marital with a paper trail to her accounts. White heavy checkmark civil fraud warning for Darren, including unauthorized access to leased property and falsified vendor credentials. Within 48 hours, every card she'd used for the salon declined. The business email went dark. Her sister's co-owner login was revoked. And Darren received a certified letter from our legal team requesting full disclosure of financial activity, or face a court summons. By Thursday, the building's maintenance team began removing signage from her suite. Under legal review, notices were posted on every door and window. Clients began calling. Word started to spread. Melissa. She still hadn't said a word, but I could see it in her posture. That quiet dread. She thought I'd be too proud to make it public. She thought I'd try to save face. She forgot who she married. That evening, she broke the silence. "I don't know what Darren told you, but he was using me." I didn't even flinch. "So you just accidentally opened a second location with him?" "It was supposed to be just branding work. He offered to help." "I didn't realize." "You didn't realize you were paying him $5,000 a month from the salon's account? You didn't realize you listed my name as the financial backer on a location I never approved." She started to cry, but it wasn't grief. It was panic. "You're destroying me," she whispered. "No," I said. "I'm just taking my name off something you already burned to the ground." The next day, Darren tried to fight back. His lawyer, some low-level friend from his gym, emailed my legal team accusing me of interfering with a business relationship. Ben responded in under 5 lines. Your client trespassed, used false vendor info, and entered a signed lease under fraudulent terms. If you'd like us to send the footage, we will, along with our court motion. There was no reply. By Monday, Darren's lease application was blacklisted from every one of my buildings. And thanks to some very old connections in local development circles, I made sure his name wasn't welcome at any property in a 30-mile radius. He'd need to change his name to rent a bathroom in this town. That night, I came home to find Melissa on the porch, crying. Again. You're really going to divorce me over this? I sat across from her, calm. No, I said. I'm divorcing you because you tried to rewrite your future, using my name, my money, and another man's ambition. We can fix this, she said. We can rebuild. You can. But you'll be doing it with someone else. She said nothing. She just sat there as the weight of everything she gambled finally came crashing down. Monday morning, 9:17 a.m., Melissa opened the front door in a bathrobe, coffee in hand. She didn't expect the man in uniform, didn't expect the envelope, didn't expect her husband's signature on the top line. Notice of divorce, fraudulent misuse of marital assets. She didn't say anything, just held the papers like they were radioactive. I was already gone for the day, not avoiding her, just done. That afternoon, I sat with Ben again. He had the finalized documents prepped and ready to file. Thanks to the prenup, which Melissa signed years ago with a wine-drunk laugh and 0 questions. She wasn't entitled to the house, the business, the accounts, or a single share of the real estate portfolio she used to brag about at dinners. We could make this nasty, Ben said. Or we could make it fast. Let's do both, I told him. Fast for me. Nasty for her. Within 48 hours, Melissa's name was removed from all joint financials. A formal fraud report was filed against her business activity. Her salon brand was legally dissolved and locked. Her sister received a cease and desist letter for representing herself as a co-owner. And Darren? He was officially blacklisted from every commercial property I had contacts with. And believe me, there were a lot. Then came the cherry on top. I reached out to a local business reporter I've known for years. Gave him a quiet, off-the-record tip. There's a great story here. Fake business filings. False ownership. Asset funneling through a boutique salon. Real estate fraud. Tax issues. Might even be a love triangle in there. The reporter didn't need more. 3 days later, the headline hit. Wellness business shut down after secret expansion scheme exposed. Melissa's name wasn't in the title, but everyone in town knew. That night, she stormed into the kitchen. You humiliated me. I didn't stop eating. You did that yourself. You went public.
No, Melissa.
I just stopped protecting you. She slammed a drawer shut. You're destroying everything we built. I looked at her, truly looked. You never built anything. You decorated a space I already owned. She stared at me wide-eyed. You used me. I set down my fork. You used me the moment you took his hand in my building. She left without another word. And that was the first moment I breathed freely in months. I woke up the next morning to silence. No perfume lingering in the hall. No coffee cups left in the sink. No false kisses or late-night client emergencies. Just a house. Mine again. In the days that followed, Melissa tried damage control. She called friends, reached out to old clients, posted vague emotional quotes online. Darren disappeared. Word is he left the county. No job.
No repietascen.
No plan. Her sister blocked me, then deleted the business account she once tried to claim. But me, I sat on my porch, bourbon in hand, and watched the last pieces of her story collapse without a sound. Because here's what she never understood. I wasn't angry when I started this. I was focused, and focus destroys everything a liar hides behind. It was 2 weeks after the divorce papers landed. She hadn't packed. She hadn't left. She just floated around the house like a ghost, pretending her world wasn't already legally erased. I let her stay, not for kindness, but because I wanted her to feel it. Every morning she woke up in my house with no rights, no business, no way back. That Friday night she asked to talk. She waited until I was sitting on the porch. Same place I used to sit and dream about building a life with her. Now it was where I went to breathe without choking on the lie. She sat across from me, quiet, almost gentle. "You're not even angry," she said. I stayed silent. "You didn't yell, didn't scream, didn't ask me why." "Because I already knew," I said. "I watched it happen." She swallowed hard. "He used me, Darren. It was his idea. You paid him. It wasn't like that. You signed a second lease behind my back. Because I thought I deserved something that was mine. There it was. Not guilt. Not apology. Just entitlement. You thought you were building your future," I said. "But all you did was dig your grave inside my name. I made one mistake." I stood up.
No.
"You made one decision. And then you doubled down. And then you tried to build an empire with a man who couldn't afford to park in front of mine." She looked like she'd break. But I was already done holding the pieces. "Can we at least talk about where I'll go? You're not my concern anymore. You're just going to leave me with nothing?" "Melissa," I said calmly, "you walked into this house with nothing but a dream, and you turned on the one person who gave it life. I didn't know it would cost me this. It didn't. Lying did." She cried that night. I heard her, in the guest room, but I didn't check on her, didn't hold her, didn't comfort her, because now, that pain belonged to her. The next morning, her things were packed. The car was full. The house cleaner than it had been in months. She stood at the door, holding her keys in her palm. "Do I get to say goodbye?" I took the keys from her hand. "You said it the night you let him in." She nodded. No more tears. Just a woman finally realizing the game ended 3 moves ago. And the man she tried to outplay never even broke a sweat. She walked away, quiet, alone.
No apology.
No second chance. No plan. Just silence. And that was the first time in years the house felt still. Not empty. Not cold. Just finally mine again. 3 days passed. The house was clean. Still. My name was back on everything that mattered. And hers? It was gone like it had never existed.
No salon.
No business. No access.
No legacy.
Just a quiet exit and the hum of legal documents clicking into place behind her. I didn't waste time. Within a week, I reopened Suite 3B, stripped it bare, fresh coat of paint, rebranded it under a new name, a real name. I gave it to someone who had once applied for a lease 2 years ago. A single mother of 2, former military, with a clean record and no illusions of shortcuts. She cried when I handed her the keys. "Why me?" she asked. "Because you won't waste it," I said. I watched her on the cameras her first day. Clients lined up. Energy in the room. The space was alive again. It wasn't Melissa's anymore. It never had been. She just borrowed the walls until she tried to tunnel through them. Darren? Word was he left town. Couldn't get a lease, couldn't open shop, couldn't land a bank account without red flags popping up. He tried one last time in another county. But when your name's tied to civil fraud, and the man you crossed owns half the real estate in 3 cities, your game ends real fast. And me? I sat on that same porch with my coffee. Read the news. Watched the sun rise. Answered emails. Took meetings. Laughed with old friends.
No bitterness. No rage.
Just clarity. Because the truth is, I didn't lose anything. She did. People around town whispered. Some said I was too harsh. Others called it inspiring. A few said I must still miss her. But here's the thing. You can't miss someone who was never really there. You miss the version you built in your head. The one who smiled and said she loved you, while secretly writing your name on his plans. And once you see the lie, you don't chase it. You erase it. A buddy of mine asked over lunch, "You think she ever loved you?" I didn't hesitate. I think she loved the version of me that didn't ask questions. And now I'm the version who sees everything and signs nothing blindly. Melissa hasn't contacted me since. No letters, no calls.
No, I'm sorry.
Which tells me she never truly wanted to fix it. She just wanted it to keep working. For her. But now, the only thing working is the life she left behind. Without her. It's been 6 months. The divorce finalized. The business is thriving under new ownership. The house is quieter now. But it's not empty. It's clean. Solid.
Mine.
Melissa hasn't contacted me.
No apology. No closure.
Not even a whisper of regret. And that silence tells me everything. Because people who lie so easily never stay long enough to clean up the mess they made. She didn't just lose a marriage. She lost access to my name, my protection, my future. The man she once smiled at across the dinner table. The man who built her dreams from blueprints and blind trust doesn't exist anymore. She didn't break me. She introduced me to the version of myself that doesn't tolerate fiction wrapped in perfume. You know what the saddest part is? She could have had a lifetime. I was loyal. I was present. I was patient. But to someone like her, that's not love. That's just convenience. Until something shinier pulls up in a newer car, with a smoother lie and zero history. She traded everything for nothing. And even the nothing didn't want to keep her. Darren's gone. Last I heard, he skipped town. Filed some paperwork under a new LLC in another state. New scam. New partner. Same story. He won't last. Men like him never do. Because their whole identity is built on someone else's foundation. And once that cracks, they fall faster than the people they fooled. As for me, I didn't rebuild out of spite. I rebuilt out of clarity. Now I see who's real, who's useful, who's dangerous, and who thinks your age or calm nature makes you blind. I used to think forgiveness was strength. Now I know the real power is walking away while they're still trying to figure out what went wrong. Because when you never needed their lies, you don't need their apology. A friend recently asked me, would you ever give her a second chance? I laughed. You don't give second chances to people who never showed up the first time. So to any man listening, if something feels wrong, it probably is. If she smiles while hiding her phone, shrugs off late nights, laughs when you ask questions, pay attention. Not with your heart, with your instinct. And if you ever find yourself thinking, maybe it's all in my head, ask yourself this. Why is the woman who says she loves me so comfortable making me doubt myself? That's not love. That's manipulation. And it ends the moment you stop asking and start checking. I didn't destroy her. She did that herself. I just made sure she didn't take me down with her. Thanks for listening. If you've been through something like this, drop your story in the comments. You're not alone. And you're not weak. You're just one truth away from getting your life back.